All right. Hello, everyone. And thanks for being with us today on Magnet Marketers, Unlocking the Power of Instagram through authenticity and authentic relationships. We are excited to dive into the topic, and we have a special guest with us. But first, I need to kind of let you know that I am not Jessica Phillips. I am the co-host typically. Jessica's usually the one doing this, and she is on her way in. So I am Mike Gingrich coming to you today and waiting for my co-host to join us, who's having a little bit of internet issues, but we're going to dive in. So you know what Magnet Marketers is all about. We love to dive into the details, dive into the stories, the hot topics, the interesting things that are happening in social media so that you can talk about being a magnet with your marketing instead of a bullhorn, right? With Magnet Marketers. So very excited to bring Rebecca with me today here. So Rebecca Radice is the founder of Rebecca Radice Media and Radiant LA, a premier training and development company working with growth-driven leaders to build comprehensive marketing systems. She's also Chief Marketing Officer of Post Planner, author of Social Media Mastery, a comprehensive guide to strategic growth, and the creator of Authority Matrix, a powerful personal brand building tool used by Fortune 500 executives to leverage employee influence and advocacy. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you. And I see Jessica was able to join us.
Yay! There's never enough planning to plan for the unexpected, especially as it relates to tech. So yeah, I was like, no, it went out like 5 minutes before we go live, of course, you know.
Yeah, roll with the punches.
I apologize. Huh? I lost audio all of a sudden, so I can't hear anything.
Okay, so like we were just saying.
You guys can hear me? Give me a thumbs up.
Yes, we can hear you.
So
maybe now you need to refresh, Mike. So that's what it's so funny. We're just
one of those days.
Planning for the unexpected. And that's part of authenticity, I guess, you know, just telling everybody, hey, what's going on? And here's how it works behind the scenes sometimes as a brand trying to go live and do teaching and training. You just never know what to expect. So, but I'm so thankful to have you here with us, Rebecca, and just excited to dive in and talking about Instagram. I know you and I were having some chats about how Instagram has impacted some of your clients and some of the stories that you've heard about just how they're really approaching Instagram as the second largest engaged social media platform in this space. It's not really showing signs of slowing down, but I think so many brands are confused on kind of where to start and how to really harness its power. So, I mean, what do you feel is one of the superpowers that Instagram has for brands?
Yeah, it's a great question. And just real quick, I'll make a little correction at the beginning, and I should have checked this. But I know no longer with Post Planner, but with Tailwind and lead product marketing over there. And so we are an Instagram scheduling tool. And so this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, as I am in it every single day and talking with just business owners, people that are using Instagram as well as using it personally to grow their business. So yeah, to your point, it is a super exciting time. It's a super exciting opportunity, but I think there's also unique challenges within that too. As maybe people are transitioning from one channel or one network over to Instagram and trying to figure out how do you transition that strategy that maybe you had over on Facebook or Twitter or elsewhere, and what is the ecosystem within Instagram? So while I think it's exciting, and you are 100% correct, it is on fire and there are no signs of slowing down. I think what is the struggling piece within this for most is connecting the dots and really understanding how to harness its power for your business.
Yeah, you're right. Like, it is a lot different. Like on Facebook, you may be posting links and, going live and all of that. And Instagram, it's digital storytelling, right? It's video, it's photos, and you're not going to have those links per se in there. And there's storytelling and so much that's part of it. And it's a different animal than any of the other social platforms. And Emily, I did want to answer your question. You said, what is the first, meaning, I'm assuming you're meaning like the most engaged platform. It's still Facebook. So Facebook is the parent company of Instagram, and it is the most engaged meaning users logging in more often and doing more things, consuming more content. And Instagram is the second now. So just wanted to make sure we answered your question there. So Rebecca, like when we're looking at Instagram though, and brands are looking at harnessing its power, like, do you think this could be for B2B, B2C? Like, does it matter if the background of the business or the type of business that it is in order to use Instagram?
No. And I think that's another misconception, is that it only works for certain industries or certain verticals, which is not the case. I think no matter what it is that you're showing up on Instagram for, there is an audience for it. In fact, I was just talking with a gal who started a whole new business at the beginning of the year, and she's in art, and it's actually styling, drawing with what looks to me, because I am not an artist, as like a black marker. And it's beautiful and very intricate. And you would think that's just so niche, right? That you wouldn't even be able to find an audience. And yet she just crossed the 10,000 follower mark. And all because, because she really figured out who her audience is and how to find them. So again, even if you've been told, or if you're feeling as if your audience isn't over there, I guarantee they are. There are just some specific ways in how you go about nurturing those relationships and then finding them.
You're absolutely right. And I love those kinds of examples, because I feel like when Pinterest first came out, like that was the misconception with Pinterest, right? Like it was like, oh, it's just for lady shoes and recipes and crafts. And it's really not. Like there's so much more into it. And I feel Instagram is really the same way. It's like really just a visual way of communicating with your audience on the platform, right? And it doesn't matter your niche, because people are searching there, and the power of searching via hashtags, via connections that you already have, and expanding that reach. I feel like I follow more brands on Instagram, honestly, than I traditionally do following on Facebook. Like I do on Twitter as well, but I'm more like an amped to follow Instagram, because I feel like if they're putting something out there, it has to be visual, and it's not just going to be a link to click to buy or opt in for something. So it's more likely that I would be following them, I would say. So when you use the example of your friend and how she started just like a few months ago, and she's already got to 10,000 followers, I mean, what kinds of things has she been doing, or what other examples have you heard for people to expand their reach overall on Instagram?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned a couple of them with hashtags. That is a really big driver. I think the other one is really understanding who your audience is and what your post topics are. So staying fairly narrow in what you're sharing over there on Instagram, I think, as we're all seeing. And to your point, we're following people because we're looking for something very specific. We know what we want. We know when we show up over there on Instagram and we're scrolling through exactly what we want to see from those people every single time. And so I think that's another misconception, where you've got to be everything to everybody, or you've got to change it up and post different content every single day to, keep a healthy mix. And that's just not the case on Instagram. If you look at the majority of influencer feeds, what is it? It's the same thing over and over and over. That picture looks a little bit different, but they're telling a very similar story with that compelling call to action of how to work with me, how to buy what I have on, how to purchase my art, whatever the case might be. So it really is getting crystal clear on who is that audience over there on Instagram? What are they looking for? And then how can you serve that up in the best way as consistently as possible? And that is definitely a key to Instagram success, is being consistent in how you're sharing and when you're sharing. And no, I don't mean you have to post every single day or 3 times a day. In fact, we have found that you don't need to do that anymore to grow your following. It's more about the value you're bringing and the type of content that you're sharing, and that your audience can feel confident that when they come over to your profile, they know exactly what they're going to get, and we're almost training them, right? Just like with any other scenario of, hey, this is what you're going to get, this is what you can expect, this is how we're going to interact. So there's a lot that's happening over there, but it doesn't have to be difficult or convoluted, which I think we've been led to believe for a while too.
Yeah, you're right. And like, when I want to go back to a point you shared about the influencer, and you said their content, it looks very similar, but they're telling the same message. And a lot of what I've seen on Instagram is that it's them in the photos, right? And they are sharing a message, but it's sharing the message as if they're giving you like a behind the scenes, and it's really into their day to day. So they're sharing their message with real photos of them, versus like on some of the other platforms, you may see like some stock photos and things like that. And they are telling it in a conversational tone. I feel like people get that more on Instagram, like instinctually, versus some of the other platforms. They're still like kind of writing like ad copy, sometimes, or sales copy.
Yes.
Where on Instagram, it seems more human and what people want to read and to connect with. Then you see the person actually in the photo, as well as, you aren't, like I said, having the links in there, but you're able to connect and engage that way and tag others like the other platforms. But the two things that I really love about it for brands is that it's typically real photos, as well as, it is diving into more of the behind the scenes from what I've seen brands posting. Like, I know you can do IGTV, which is the video format. You can do stories, of course, and then you can do posts. Like, when it comes to authenticity, like, or just growth of a brand on Instagram, which have you seen work the best for brands?
Really, they work best when you're using them in conjunction. So yeah, Instagram has given us a ton of features to engage our audience. Mike, I see you shaking your head like, oh my goodness, yes, so many options.
Can you hear us now? I wasn't sure if you could hear us.
Yes,
Okay,
I got it.
Okay, good. Well, then I won't like keep chiming in. I was thinking you're just like hanging out.
Bobblehead.
He is here with us. But yeah, it does work when you can find a way to use a variety. So, say posting to your feed and then using stories to promote the fact that you've posted to your feed. So let's just say you're a blogger and you just wrote a new blog post and you post about that to your feed, and you're doing something like you were just talking about, Jessica, where you're talking about the behind the scenes with your blog and why you wrote that and why it matters and how it helps your audience. Well, you can use stories to do little snippets around, what they can expect from that blog post, and kind of drive people back over to, say, that post or to your link in bio, whatever you're pushing them over to. So it really is testing out all of these different features, getting a feel for what your audience is responding to. So do they like to see you live? Do they like to see you in stories? Well, from what we hear, absolutely. They like to see you in your stories, because what people say is that they're more authentic. And you're already talking, Jessica, about how authentic Instagram can tend to feel compared to other platforms. Well, stories, I think, takes that to a whole other dimension, where we kind of strip away the pretty and the maybe posed look of our feeds with the beautiful overlays and filters and everything else that we're using. And instead, we we take you with us. So you go on our journey, you see where we're at, wherever that takes us during that day. So I really think it comes back to testing out what your audience is responding to, what is creating that interaction, that engagement, causing them to take action, and then starting to use those consistently. So it's building that habit, which can also be a challenge with Instagram.
Got it. One question I have, because I tend to work with a fair amount of B2B companies, and it seems like we struggle at times with how to connect that authenticity with a larger brand. We're talking about like a manufacturer or something like that, and that's where stories for them, that it can be almost like a stumbling block for them, because they're just like, I have no idea what to do. You don't want to see the factory line, really, do you? I mean, those type of things, or they want to show you the boat, and so and any ideas like for the authenticity? What does that mean for a B2B brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love your example, because I think no matter what industry you're in, I've heard that pushback of it's just not interesting, or it's not sexy, the business that I'm in. And to that, I always say, to the right audience, anything you do is interesting. Because there are those people that would want to see your product line and how you're developing, your next product, or who those people are that are helping to develop that product. So there's so many different ways that you can take people behind the scenes, like you talked about, Jessica, but also shine a light on your business in a very non-pushy way, which I think that's another way we can really use Instagram, instead of, and Jessica, you mentioned it earlier, kind of dropping a link and pushing people out to your website or your blog. You do have the chance to put more context around your content. So whether you're B2B or B2C, you need to think about what those things are that have brought you to where you are. So no matter the size of your company, what brought you to where you are today? And what are those stories that you can tell that only your company could tell? And that could be around how you got started, what it was born out of, what problems you solve for people, how you're committed to doing that every single day within your business. Who are the people within your business that actually support that vision? What have you created that is the solution to that business's unique challenge? So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. You just oftentimes have to put yourself in the shoes of that business and understand that they were all where you started at one point, and think about how you could accelerate their growth or ease their pain of learning or get them, from A to B a whole lot faster. And so that's a piece of it too, is just really thinking through what were your struggles when you got started? What were your blockers? What kept you from accelerating as fast as you wanted to? And what would you want to know? And then using Instagram to really help you make that connection, educate, take people along on your journey, and really help them along that, understand, what you do, who you help, and how what you do can truly transform their business.
I love what you said there. And I love, Brian Fanzo said this a couple times, if you're scared to be on camera, because I find most of the clients, when we bring that up and they give a pushback, it's because they're like, I don't want to be on camera. And what Brian has said, and I've heard him several presentations saying, flip the camera around, right? Mike, you're saying showing off that boat, or, highlighting, Rebecca, what you're saying, your story or your team members, right? And even your clients, maybe even you're highlighting a client that's using that product or service and featuring them instead. And then another example that I heard from Agora Pulse. They did this study and said that some of their most engaged with stories was actually text. It was like text with animation. So I was like, well, that's awesome to know. Then you don't feel like you have to potentially be on video every time, right? When you're doing a story, it could be like a blend of text and maybe some GIFs in there or some images, and then potentially a video, every so often, which was really helpful to know when they did that study. And something that we've tried, like even here at Now Marketing Group, is having like the team do team takeovers. And that's really helped kind of like divide the responsibility and the load of the work, I would say, from one person, like keeping it up all the time.
Absolutely. That's a great idea.
Not sure how manufacturing would feel about that. Mike, I feel your pain. I work with the same type of clients. So I get it. But yeah, when they can see others doing it, then I feel like they get the hang of it more often, But
yeah, it's funny that you say that, because that is the biggest pain point I hear every single day is, show me how to do it and give me examples of other people doing it so I can see what that actually looks like and what that sounds like. And I do think it's so helpful to be able to see, oh, okay, so, my competition is doing this and I could, do a little different spin on that, but I'd feel comfortable in doing that and being able to see how the audience is reacting to that. But I like your point about video and Brian, and yeah, he's all about push that damn button and just do it, which I do agree with. There is a point where you have to face that fear. But there are so many different ways we can use video or graphics without having to be on or in those every single time.
Yeah. And Tim says, this is so relevant for me. I'm working with a real estate firm right now, and they don't want to be on camera or phone. So since we were just talking about examples, Rebecca, like, do you have other examples, like the client you shared that was doing the drawings with the marker, that are brands that are really showing up authentically on Instagram?
Well, and since Tim's asking about real estate, I think we can kind of stay with that example, because it can be tough. In any industry, you can default, right, to what you're comfortable with, what you feel like you share. And with real estate agents or brokers, it can be your listing. So it's just house after house after house, and trying to figure out how to integrate video or pictures of, say, your agents can be very difficult because not everybody feels comfortable with that. So I would think about how you could, first of all, maybe do what Now Marketing has done, where you can divide and conquer. So maybe have a Q&A Tuesday, and you bring a different agent on every Tuesday to ask or to answer a top question that a buyer or seller might have. I'm getting ready to buy a new house, and I've got a house to sell, and I'm not exactly sure when I should put, my house on the market. And then start looking, am I going to be homeless? And, in the interim, these are crazy things, that we all think of as we go through that process. So it doesn't have to be difficult, is my point, to think about what are those questions that your audience asks, your clients ask over and over and over again. And then how could you turn that into maybe an AMA? So maybe you show up on IGTV, one of your agents shows up on IGTV once a week. And, people can just ask them anything that's on their mind. What you're doing is you're positioning yourself as a go-to person within that location. You're the expert because you are in real time solving their problems. And like with any industry, we're not all ready to pull the trigger. We're not ready to buy or list our home right at that time, but you're building that habit of coming back and finding you. And you're also building that awareness so that as they do get to that point, as they are ready to buy art, like we talked about the other gal, that I go, oh, Anna, of course, that's who I'm going to buy from. So it's just thinking about how you can start to intersperse it into what you're already doing, and kind of test out these different mediums.
I love the Ask Me Anything idea. That one is awesome. And like you were saying, like featuring different agents, like having them do it, even if they were to like, they're doing open houses probably anyway, like even bringing in like a home stager or someone else to say like, hey, what would you do in this setting? That's a really, really good idea. So, and Tim says we're doing a FAQ Friday videos, but there's really 2 agents out there, so many more, 2 agents out of so many more willing to do it. And they don't want to give up the exposure of the 2 agents. Want to give all the exposure, excuse me. They don't want to give all the exposure to the 2 agents. I would say that's the reason to get everybody else in on it. You know, you start featuring those 2 agents and they're like, hey, they're getting the exposure. I want to get it. So I need to join in.
Exactly. And I would back yourself into that. You know, take a look at the reach you're getting, viewership, you know, how many people are showing up to those. How can you create a little bit of FOMO in the other agents of, holy cow, I got to get in on this because X or Y agent is, you know, at this point, it sounds like just going back and forth between those 2, they are gaining all of the benefits that you could be spreading out. And it's going to make your life a whole lot easier too. If you create a schedule and a calendar and you can just kind of rotate through those people. And then I would place ownership on them of, you know, what is your special set of skills? What's your expertise? Obviously within real estate, there's all kinds of segments, first-time home buyers, you know, exactly who they're working with, and challenge them to come up with their own ideas for that frequently asked question or AMA or whatever you decide to do, because there you're going to get a whole lot more buy-in to skin in the game, where they're going to feel more committed to showing up, and you may have that less of a likelihood of them saying, oh, well, I've got a showing, I'm too busy, I'm not going to be there today, kind of thing, where you put all the work into it and then they don't show up. So it's a struggle. The struggle is real for sure. And it doesn't matter the industry. And I think you just have to get creative and get people as involved as possible so that they feel like it's their idea. And
that's the key right there. They're going to feel like it's their idea, and then showing them the numbers.
And it's a winner.
Yes, like, exactly. For doing this.
Yeah. Make it their idea and then show them exactly the growth over time so they can feel super confident that they're putting their time and effort into the right thing.
And Tim says, thank you so much for the great ideas, Rebecca. So good stuff.
You bet.
Yes. Good. Hey, Rebecca, I was curious, you know, there's talk in Canada, it's been tested out there that removing the public likes from posts, that type of thing. So if that rolls out, I mean, what kind of, what's your thoughts on impact and how that marketers kind of need to adjust?
Yeah, well, I think it's everything that both of you stand for. It's creating relationships, going deep and not wide, really understanding your audience, building that habit of coming back to you every single day, or knowing exactly when you're going to post, showing that you care, showing up consistently so that they know that you're committed to using Instagram as an outlet.
Got it.
I love that.
Now, let's see, like the trend was that stories was getting, you know, used more and more. It was going to get close to surpassing time spent in the news feed. I don't know if that threshold ever crossed there, but yeah, you know, stories has continued to increase. Do we see a trend where IGTV is picking up? You know, so thoughts on that?
Yeah. You know, the adoption around IGTV definitely has not been what Instagram hoped it would be. It is picking up, but it's been slower. And stories, yes, stories are where it is at this point. If you've noticed that the people you're following are creating more and more stories, there's a reason. It's because we're all raising our hands saying, I want to watch stories. I'm more interested in watching your behind the scenes than looking at your, you know, pretty unfiltered picture on your profile. And in fact, there's been a whole movement away from the edited and stylized and towards the real in the moment. Yeah, this is who I am kind of picture. So yeah, stories is definitely a wonderful complement to your posting strategy and a great way to keep up that engagement and that enthusiasm too, so that you don't feel like you're constantly chasing a carrot, like I've got to get something else posted. Instead, stories are just kind of quick. They're little snippets of, a day in the life or a moment in time where people can learn more about you. I don't know about both of you, but I feel like I actually get to know people's personalities. I get to hear their voices. Yeah, what you like.
Yeah. And that's why I think stories are a lot better. Like you were saying, those micro moments versus somebody watching like a 2-minute or whatever video. Like I just don't think about IGTV. Like sometimes it'll show up in the thread as a creator, maybe that's doing something super interesting. But for brands, I much prefer like you said, those little moments where you're getting to know them a little bit more. And it's not it doesn't feel as long and heavy and produced. It's more authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a very different strategy behind that too, where your posts, you're really thinking through from a strategic business level of how does my post content in my feed, how does that support my main goals? And what is it that I'm trying to drive? What is that action? What is that response? What is the engagement? Whereas stories can be just a little bit more fun. As I said, in the moment, you don't have to put the hours into a photography session or maybe editing. So there's just
video
not as much
Right.
stress involved too.
Love that.
Good thing.
So
Less stress.
I love what you're sharing. I mean, you've hit on several points, like knowing your audience, like showing up as you, like not having to focus on, posting so much and it being so produced, but just focus on being in the moment and truly like showing up to care for your audience and your team and, feature things that they want to learn and hear about in hopes of really knowing like, how is this affecting and leading us to reaching our goals at the end of the day and tracking that, because it's a little bit different than, e-commerce or something like that. Even though you can add it in, it's really this relationship building that can help you grow your brand awareness or reduce churn, all those things. So you're really talking about like, this is the platform for authenticity and building those relationships because it's different than any other. So last question for you, Rebecca, like what do you feel like is the most crucial things that brands should start doing now today to really get to that next level on Instagram?
Yeah, I'd really think about, and maybe even backing up from what I was just going to say, do an assessment, go through your feed, look at your content from your audience's perspective. That's pretty eye-opening a lot of times, where how you wanted it to come across isn't necessarily the emotion it's generating. It's not how it's leaving your audience feeling. So that's always a good place to start, is have a good little heart-to-heart with your team around what is it that we're sharing currently? How is our audience responding to that? And is it truly the best representation of what our business and our brand is all about? And then from there, it's understanding what we talked about at the beginning, which is how do your topics support that then? So once you think about, okay, so there are 4 main core tenets we should be talking about every single day within our business. And how can those roll into our content strategy over on Instagram? So thinking about what are those topics and how will they show up on Instagram? So you could think about this like, we'll just use Instagram marketing as an example. Let's say something I want to talk about within my business is how to help marketers learn how to use Instagram marketing, or how to help small businesses learn how to use Instagram marketing. Now I want to break that down even further into, okay, so if they want to use Instagram marketing, what do they really need to know? Maybe they need to know the things we talked about. They need to understand all of the different features within Instagram. They need to know how to track all of the right metrics and what that actually means to them. They need to know how to create great content that their audience wants to come back and engage with. So it's just really thinking through on a high down to a granular level in terms of how will Instagram support your overall business strategy? And then what does that posting plan look like for you? How are you going to get there? How are you going to create that content? How are you going to get it into a system that makes it easy and it breaks it up if you do have a team? So figuring out what those responsibilities are. But yeah, it doesn't, I want to bring it back to what we first talked to at the beginning. None of this has to be difficult. You really can just make it that simple. What is it that we're trying to achieve? Okay, we're a local business, we're an ice cream shop, and we're trying to get people into our store every single day. How are we going to do that? How is Instagram going to support us in getting 100 people through the door every single day? So I think that would be the other piece I would say is assign a number to it. Really know what that is that every single one of your posts is supporting, because you can get burned out on anything pretty quickly if you don't have that metric, if you don't have that North Star that's kind of guiding and directing you, and also keeping you or your team honest too, so that you can look week over week or month over month and say, aha, this kind of content or this particular topic is really moving the needle for us. We should do more of that. So, strategy definitely is not the easiest thing for everybody. But even if you're doing it from a very basic high level, it's really critical that you're aligning all of that over on Instagram to your business.
Great stuff. I liked it. You said keep it simple. I mean, we got enough complexity out there, right? So
yes,
yeah. So that's wonderful. It's reassuring.
Yeah. Well, and that is part of the challenge, right? Is that I think too often we hear social media is hard, it's difficult, and Instagram algorithm and yada yada yada. So many factors against us, and so we just layer and we pile things on top of one another, and before we know it, our strategy is so darn convoluted. It's no wonder we're exhausted and feeling like we can't keep up. So I would strip it down to the simplest, easiest way for you to share what you need to share. And if it's just, posting once a week to your feed and using stories in between that, do it. Whatever that looks like for you, because if you come out of the gate with this big, overwhelming strategy, you're setting yourself up for failure, unfortunately, which I think we all speak from experience on that.
Yeah, when it gets too complicated, it just doesn't happen. It's like
That's right.
that thing we will do later that day, later that never comes around during the week. But
well,
yeah,
of course, you just keep kicking that can, right? You're like, oh, tomorrow.
Yeah, it just needs that one extra little thing on it.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, you're always such a wealth of information. I am so thankful that you joined in with us today, and I apologize for the tech issues at the beginning. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. I do want to, ask you where others can find you online if they have questions about this or just want to find more goodies that you have to offer. Where would they check you out at?
Well, thank you. So you can connect with me anywhere at Rebecca Radice. My website is RebeccaRadice.com, or I would love to see you over at tailwindapp.com, and you can sign up for a free account. It is not a trial. It is a free, full access to everything we've kind of been talking about here, everything you would need for Instagram marketing. And on top of that, if people are working towards that almighty number of 10K followers on Instagram, we actually just kicked off a Facebook group that is geared towards simply supporting you. And I think we have close to 1,000 people in there already in just like 30 days. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So would love to see you there. I'm happy to share that link with you.
I just asked, I posted your website link in here, but yes, I would love that link. And I'm sure everyone else would as well. And we'll put it in the show notes here as well.
All right. Well, thank you both. This was so much fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us again.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. And thank you all for joining in with us today. Whether you're watching live or catching the replay, we appreciate you. We will be back here next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with another special guest. So hope you can join us next week, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Magnet Marketers, where our goal is always to help you become a magnet with your marketing versus a bullhorn. Until next week, hope you guys have a good rest of your day. And
Thank you, everyone.
see ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.